Alright, hey guys, this is Mr. Trent. Here's your review for that test on Wednesday. Now here's the deal. Well, first of all, Pat, if you're watching this, just know we're praying for you and your family, and anybody who's going to the funeral on Tuesday. I think just that's awesome, and God wants to bless that. So I'm doing the review that I would have done on Tuesday in class. I'm going to do it online in a simple manner so as to help you guys out with this test. Pat, don't worry about this test. You're all set. We've taken care of that. But for everybody else, if you're going to be out on Tuesday, know that you can take the test on Wednesday when you come back, or you can take the test on Thursday. That will be entirely your option. You can take the test either day. So again, if you're at the funeral on Tuesday and miss this review in class, you could watch the review here, still take the test Wednesday, or you can take the test on Thursday. It is 100% up to you, and you decide based on your exam schedule. Okay, so the test is going to cover the notes on the sacraments, which are all online. There are a couple parts to those notes, so be sure you print out all the parts. They include all of the 7 sacraments. Also, the test is going to cover the Council of Trent, the presentation on that, as well as the Vatican II presentations. So I guess we'll go in order here. The first thing that's on this is the Council of Trent. Hopefully you've printed out all the notes, and hopefully you've taken great notes in class. This is intended to help supplement those and help you just have a solid review. So the important background for the Council of Trent. Here's the situation. You have a very uneducated priesthood, which ended up creating corruption within the priesthood and their relationship to the community. And it ended up creating a lot of confusion about Catholic beliefs as they were presented in a way that was easily misunderstood, and that created the Protestant Reformation, which was begun by a Catholic priest who was intending to be faithful to the Catholic Church. So really the key thing is just a poor education for the priesthood. For us as Catholic students, it reminds us how important it is to know our faith and to be able to explain it in simple, down-to-earth, in a simple and down-to-earth manner, because that is what triggered the Protestant Reformation. Catholics' inability to do that, and that's what causes a lot of strife in the church today. So, here we go. God bless you guys. Here we go. The Council of Trent. So that was the major issue, the uneducated priesthood, creating all those issues. Pope Paul III calls the council in the 1500s. And there were 2 basic tasks for the council, according to Paul III. The first is to address the corruption in the church and to create laws to end that corruption. And the second was to respond to the Protestant Reformation and to define church teachings, therefore, in a clear manner. So, to respond to corruption and to respond to the Protestant Reformation. That's why it was convened. Pope Paul III dies. Pope Paul IV comes in, and he is against the Council of Trent, and the Council of Trent is not completed until after Paul V's death. Okay, question 3. Who were the Jesuits, and what was their impact on Trent? In what ways were they different than the other priests? The Jesuits were noticeably more educated and noticeably more devout, and they had a profound impact on the Council of Trent. Just like another Jesuit, Karl Rahner, had a profound impact on Vatican II. What happened to priests and bishops who committed immoral acts? They were immediately suspended, which is similar to the way the bishops in the United States are dealing with the sexual abuse scandal. Now you are suspended if there's an accusation, and then when they come to the truth of that situation, they either reinstate you if you're innocent, or they remove you if you're not. So an immediate suspension. What were the 3 requirements of the newly ordained priests? You'd want to know that they needed to know their faith, which was not a given at the time. They needed to be trained in how to practice the sacraments, and they needed to be morally stable. Things that we would think would be a given were not necessarily a given. Also, you should know about Trent. It required that every diocese have a seminary to teach the priests, so there's a legitimate education. And a lot of these ordered priests, like the Jesuits, who were more educated, became the professors and teachers in these seminaries, and their influence on the church grew. The Council of Trent did not establish any new doctrines. It just re-explained the older doctrines in a simple manner, in a down-to-earth manner. It also created policies for dealing with corruption and, again, seminaries for training priests. Out of the Council of Trent, you have this command to write a catechism. You have the first real catechism in the Catholic Church. It's called the Roman Catechism, and it was put in a very simple format, and today's catechism of the Catholic Church is based on that format. It's just an updated addition to it. Let's see. At the time of Trent, what was the relationship between the faith of the ruler of a country and his people? The king, or the leader of his people, his religion was the religion of the people. This created a very volatile situation, because if the king converted, then all the people had to convert. And there was no religious freedom. So it created a lot of tension among Christians and among citizens of a country, and therefore created a lot of division. No freedom of religion. Okay, number 10. Before the Council of Trent and the Roman Catechism, what did priests turn to? They turned to Summa Theologica, written by Aquinas, which we've read some of in class. Summa Theologica is an incredible explanation of the Church's teachings. The problem was it was written in Latin, and most of the priests were not educated enough to read it in Latin. Therefore, most of the priests were not educated in the Catholic faith, because that was the only textbook. And it created a confused priesthood, which then created a confused laity. Okay, if the minister of a sacrament is in a state of mortal sin, according to the Council of Trent, is the sacrament invalid? No, the sacrament is always valid, because Jesus is really the person conferring the sacrament, and Jesus is sinless and holy, regardless of the priest's disposition. Can someone other than an ordained member of the priesthood administer the sacraments? No, except in well, no. In general, no. It can't just be regular Joe Schmo consecrating the Eucharist. There are some exceptions, but in general, no. If a person were baptized by a Protestant, would their baptism count according to the Catholic Church? Yes. The Catholic Church has never asked for rebaptism. Even at a time when there was a lot of tension with Protestant churches, the Catholic Church still honored the sacraments of the Protestant churches, which is pretty unique. The Church, when it comes to sacramental theology, has always held a pretty moderate stance. It embraces the sacraments celebrated in other churches and recognizes them, even if it disagrees with the Church. That's pretty interesting. Can a baptized Christian lose grace? Yes. I think we all know that Adolf Hitler was baptized, and he can reject his grace in the sacraments. Should somebody who publicly denied the Catholic faith and came back to Catholicism be rebaptized? No. The Church will always honor the sacrament of baptism. So again, it's a pretty moderate approach. And now, so what happens is after Trent, you have the Roman Catechism that's written, and then there were some questions that the presenters had to answer about the Roman Catechism. So here are some succinct answers on those. Who was the Roman Catechism originally intended for? Lay people. But eventually it was written for priests, because the priests were so uneducated they couldn't read the Latin documents. The Catechism actually ended up educating priests, and the priests then educated the lay people with it. And they did this at St. Charles Borromeo's urging. As Borromeo just was emphatically reiterated what Council of Trent had said to do. The Catechism is written in Latin, but the local bishops put it into the vernacular. And then Pope Leo XIII said to use the Catechism and Summa Theologica if you were a priest. Those became the two primary texts for a priest to study his faith. The Catechism was also called the Catechism of the Council of Trent. What else? I think, well, okay, I'll just answer the rest of the questions so you have them for this test. You may or may not have gotten to this in class. Is military terminology a good analogy for the sacraments? No. The Catechism says we shouldn't have this militaristic view of God. We should not look at the sacraments as an obligation. Instead, they define a sacrament as a visible sign of an invisible grace, or a visible manifestation of God's invisible love that Christ instituted so that we could go to heaven and experience His grace here on earth. Let's see. Does the the unworthiness of the minister affect the sacrament's validity? No. What is justifying grace? It's unconditional love from God that saves us from hell, and it creates the first effect of the sacraments, which is salvation. And the sacraments save us or usher us into the spiritual life, but they also help us grow in our relationship with God. And that is your summary of the Council of Trent. I apologize if the video is boring, guys. I'm just trying to help you out here for this test. Okay, the next thing you had is the notes on the sacraments. I think those are pretty self-explanatory. I don't think there's a need to go through all these in any great depth. But sure you know what ecumenism is. If you don't know what that is, be sure you know that all the sacraments have a, they all originate in Scripture. Be sure you know the Church is teaching about limbo. Be sure you know that Lutherans, Anglicans, and the Orthodox celebrate all 7 sacraments in a very similar manner to the way we celebrate them as Catholics. And I think that's about it. Be sure you look through the notes. I think they're pretty self-explanatory. Vatican II. Here's the stuff on the Vatican II presentations I would be sure that I knew. I would know that Vatican II was started in 1962, lasted 3 years. The idea was to help the Church engage the modern world. At this time, the Church... Oh, there's the bell. I will have to finish this review later. God bless you guys. I'll give you Vatican II on the next video. Peace out. And again, sorry if this was boring.